Scott Peterson here with you today. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, big news lately in the world of MMA, and we are going to jump to it. UFC gets into the cannabis business with Aurora, company from Canada. I never thought I'd see those two logos together, but we do. Canadian company Aurora inks a multi-year, multi-million-dollar global partnership with the UFC that is expected to advance further clinical research on the relationship between 100% hemp-derived cannabidiol, CBD products, and athlete wellness recovery, with a view to accelerating CBD product development and education. The research will be conducted at the UFC's Performance Institute in Las Vegas, Nevada, in collaboration with UFC sports teams, as well as athletes who choose to participate in the studies. Clinical studies will focus on pain management, inflammation, injury exercise recovery, and mental well-being. Jake, man, oh man, is it about time? Is that what you're thinking?
It's 100% about time. I mean, there's so many medical benefits with cannabis. It's definitely time. It's time we moved away from the pharmaceuticals and looked at a natural resource.
Yeah, especially with a lot of the injuries that the fighters are always dealing with injuries and recovery, and and some have relied on TRT and these other things that are not allowed, and now that CBD is becoming accepted in society more, and we're seeing this partnership, this could be really good for the fighters. So guys, you got a treat today. We got an expert on the line, Robert Casillas. He is our cannabis expert and consultant from CCGC, Cannabis Commerce Group Consulting, and he's going to give us a little bit of insight on what this could mean for the UFC and the fighters. Robert, do we got you on the line?
Yes, great to be on the show with you guys.
Hey, thanks for giving us your time. So the UFC getting into the business. First of all, I mean, this is as far as culturally, I mean, how big of a deal is this for the acceptance of a major sports organization getting into a partnership with a cannabis company?
Well, yeah, Scott, it's pretty amazing that UFC is actually taking this leap of faith because of the science, and I know a lot of the major sports groups, that we could name, they know there's benefits, but there's also been a taboo related with the word cannabis. But now that it's totally accepted in Canada, and I think it's important that they're doing this with a Canadian, professor, a Canadian doctor, and a Canadian company. I think it's huge, and I think it's going to be huge for the fighters. So, I think anybody who's an enthusiast of the UFC or sports in general should applaud this huge step that, the UFC is taking to work with this cannabis group, Aurora.
Do you think we're going to see or other sports organizations get involved with this research? Because this is a research, it's not like a pure advertising type of partnership. They're going to be doing research, delving into the benefits, how it can help these athletes. Do you see other sports organizations following suit?
Absolutely. I think there's already been chatter, and I think these organizations, being in the industry, I know that there's a lot of non-disclosures with certain groups and certain organizations. They've been, looking at it behind the scenes and having conversations. No one's really had the forward thinking to make that leap and actually go into the public with it. So yes, they are looking at it, and I think you're going to see a lot soon to follow, especially after you're going to get reports from the athletes and also from the science, from the professor from these universities, showing that CBD in fact will assist any athlete with these areas of research that they've announced, which is, recovery and especially with your nerves. There's any kind of brain injury. There's a lot of research that CBD has proven that it is effective for these athletes, and for the UFC to start doing that research on that professional level, at that level, and even here in the States, it's pretty huge. So you'll see, I know soon you're going to see other organizations follow, but it's great the UFC got ahead of it.
Now they're going to be this will be quite the deal. I mean, is this the first major? I mean, there's obviously been studies into the effects of CBD and with inflammation and cancer and things like that. But is this, as far as you know, one of the first major studies to be done on this scale with sports athletes and delving into the effects and benefits with them?
Right. The first publicly, and definitely for the first of any official sports organization. You have UFC. In its infancy was looked at as a stepchild of a sport, but now it's shown and it's proven to be a major sport with a worldwide audience and world class athletes in the UFC. I think this is the first sports organization to really do the research. From the reports and from the information I've seen out there with the organizations, it looks like they're taking this very serious. And even from comments from Dana White, the UFC president, it looks like he's taking it serious. And at first, a lot of people in the industry were, without reading the details, were saying it was more of a marketing ploy and more of a marketing move for a cannabis company. But the way it looks, and by having real doctors, a real university behind it, and actually looking at the science, it looks like they're doing it the right way, and it's going to be done right, and it's pretty exciting. It's very exciting for the sports world.
Now, for people that to make sure there's no confusion, so can you tell us the difference between somebody that says, what is marijuana difference, cannabis, CBD, THC? So this is not marijuana per se, or correct me if I'm wrong, but it is cannabis, since it's part of the cannabidiol family.
Right. So to add to the confusion, that's a very good question. And to clarify, it's the same plant in sense. CBD and cannabis is a hemp plant versus a cannabis plant. Now, if you look at them by the naked eye, you can't tell the difference between a cannabis plant and a hemp plant because they're exactly the same plant. What differentiates hemp scientifically from cannabis or marijuana is the amount of THC, which is the actual psychoactive component which makes people high. So the difference with CBD is it is not the THC component, and it's a pure extract of a hemp plant. Now, the hemp plant has a threshold of cannabis for the plant. So if it's 0.00 in the state of Nevada, 0.00039 or just under 0.004 of the plant with THC factor. So there is in a hemp plant a very, very, very minute trace of THC, but cannot make you intoxicated. But with CBD, to be clear with CBD, it is extracted. It's a method of taking the whole plant, a hemp plant, or even at that point a cannabis plant, to make you more confused. You could take either plant and isolate, take that aspect, the CBD component out of the plant, where it has no other components to make you high or intoxicated.
Right.
So that's why it's legal, and there are proven and widely known health benefits from the CBD component. And that's why you can sell it in stores. It doesn't give you a psychoactive high effect, but there are health benefits to it. So in essence, CBD can be found in both cannabis and hemp plants, so it is in both plants. It's like saying there's water in beer and there's water in soda. If you can extract the water from beer or soda, it's healthy and it won't hurt you. So it's just a component of both of those plants.
Both of those
only
plants.
In those plants.
So is it because we have somebody in the chat room saying that it's only involved, that it's deceptive, it's only involved in CBD, but CBD does come from cannabis, like you said, and hemp. So
Correct.
is there a legal thing? Does one have to take it from one or the other, or it can be extracted from both legally? There's no issues.
Correct. It can be extracted from both legally. However, to legally grow hemp, again, the hemp plant, the genetics, the actual plant, the genetics of the plant have to, there are certain seeds and crops where those genetics are producing such a low level of THC. We can go into it, and I could definitely speak for hours on it, but basically those plants must have that threshold of THC that is under 0.004 to be legal as hemp, and that's where the majority of the CBD community are extracting from those plants, because those genetics have a higher percentage of CBD in the plant, which ranges from 6 to 17-20% of that plant's weight is actual CBD, whereas in cannabis, the cultivators or the growers and the manufacturers of cannabis are looking for a higher threshold of THC. So it's two ends of the spectrum. Cannabis growers grow for a higher THC value and different profiles of the cannabis plant. And there are strains that are demanded in the cannabis industry where they're not looking for high THC, but they're looking for the combination of high THC and CBD. So if you are in a state or country where it's legal, those plants and those genetics are being sought after as well. So, there's science saying that you have that to get the full effect, you must have a little THC. It's called the entourage effect. And people listening to the podcast who understand will agree that, and science agrees that, to get the full benefit, you want a little of each, and I won't get into thresholds and
right.
the whole arguments with that.
We don't want to get into the weeds, per se. We're dealing with the CBD side and not the THC side. So we really appreciate your time. Just ending thoughts, what is the significance in your mind of this partnership?
I think the significance is it's kicking the door open to the science and breaking down the negative thoughts and the negative connotation of CBD in general, because of the confusion of CBD and THC, which we clarified. But I also think that because Aurora is a cannabis company, they're also looking at those benefits, and you're going to see the research into the actual cannabis, what THC does for the body, and obviously they would probably recommend that to fighters when they're off season and not under the influence, obviously, but there are some benefits, and I think you're going to see that coming down the road as well.
All right, Robert, thank you so much for jumping on the line with us at the Lowdown. We really appreciate it.
No worries. You guys keep doing your thing. Thanks.
Well, Jake, we got some comments in the line. Tiger Drag and Nick Diaz is a pioneer.
We knew that was coming.
Yeah,
you knew the Diaz. They're trailblazers.
He should get a legendary emeritus status on his work on this. Keith Whalen, maybe they'll stop harassing fighters for using weed, but not for self-destructive weight cutting. Good point. Bill Ostay, UFC into THC next. Well, this is just for CBD, and I know that some people say that there's also health benefits on that side, but that is not what they're doing yet. But who knows where everything leads to.
I know for me, Scott, it's made a huge difference in my life. I mean, because it has such a myriad of benefits, from Being I had asthma as a fighter, and it works as a bronchial dilator. My performance has increased. Pain relief, inflammation, stress, anxiety, muscle recover, more focus. We've really been misled for many, many, many years, and I'm glad to see this coming into the light now. Hey, and shout out to Robert Casillas. He's been a close friend of mine, but I always get an education when I work with him as well.
So, I mean, this I see this as being really positive, just for the fact that it's just not, okay, we're going to do this advertising partnership and promote this because we legally can, but that they're actually going to be doing some research and stuff to help the fighters. And a lot of people that are benefactors and promote cannabis, sometimes when I listen to it, it's like, oh, you think it heals everything. I think this will be good to get down to exactly what it does to heal and help people out and open it up to other people if there are health benefits there.
Yeah, I mean, and the big thing is in NFL and NBA, you've got these guys taking all these pharmaceutical meds, and a lot of fighters that I know, they'll take 5, 6 Oxycontin, Vicodins, Percocets, whatever it is, pain relievers. Those are highly toxic on your body and can be highly addictive as well. So it's nice to see an alternative medicine come in, and I'm glad the UFC's doing the groundbreaking research to hopefully bring this into all sporting organizations and to benefit the athletes.
Yes, and that's the thing. And the gentleman in the chat room made a good point on, the weight cutting. You got this weight cutting. You got guys, with the injuries using pharmaceuticals that are damaging with the pain relief, and anything that you can do to make these fighters more healthy, I am for. And so
yeah, he's correct. He's very right. I mean, weight cutting's very dangerous. When that brain's dehydrated, and if you can't hydrate it back up, now that, and I don't know what the boxing commission's thinking because none of them have any real experience in this. They're just using the fighters as it's don't even get me started there, but taking away the IVs was horrible, because if that brain's not hydrated when you go into the ring, it increases many chances of being knocked out and many problems from there.
Right. Yeah, and that itself also deserves its own episode to get into that. Now, besides this, and I do find it a little bit curious on the timing that this came out right before Endeavor used to be WME-IMG. I'm sure glad they switched to Endeavor, because I just barely got used to saying WME-IMG. Parent company of the UFC files to go public. It says here, rumors have been swirling for months that Endeavor planned to take the company public, but now the filing has been done. It's official. It's been filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission. While there's no official word on the type of capital that Endeavor hopes to raise with the initial public offering, the Hollywood Reporter stated that the organization, previously known as WME-IMG, great, I got to say it again, is looking to add approximately $500 million in capital, with the company's evaluation at more than $6 billion. Yeah, just some very interesting. I always expected that this was the play and that this was what was going to happen.
You almost had to, because with the $4 billion evaluation, how could you possibly make that much money to start paying your investors back? And keep in mind, under that Endeavor umbrella, it's, they have WME, IMG, UFC, PBR, and some other joint ventures. So there's some big...
Right here, Miss American pageant. I can't believe you forgot that right there.
How dare
don't say rodeo and then skip the chicks. I mean, come on. This is awesome stuff. Yeah, and then with they just recently did that ESPN deal, which they've been saying was a big part in getting them to this step of going public, because it gives the UFC that steady income instead of the up and down of the pay-per-view model.
So real quick, Scott, let's touch on that, because in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, but UFC gauged everything off pay-per-view. So rather they had 200,000 buys or a Conor fight with 1.7 million buys.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from my understanding with this ESPN deal, ESPN is paying him a flat fee of 500,000, or the equivalent
of a 500,000 pay-per-view. Right, pay-per-view buy.
And a lot of fighters have come out. Brennan Schaub's come out and said, "Hey, the fighters are fucked," and he said it's the end of it, because a lot of fighters work on that pay-per-view model, and they get paid per pay-per-view. So this could be interesting, but that's something we can touch on later. But quite a deal.
Right, very important, because investors are going to want to see reliable income, and that's what this ESPN thing brought in. Was it really? I think a big key point on this. Not that I know anything about anything, but also some information from Deadline's reporting that. Says here, and this was I believe from the SC, from the Securities Exchange filing. As the entertainment industry moves forward, a closed ecosystem model with less transparency, our clients and businesses need more insight, resources, and solutions than ever before. Ari Emanuel wrote, "We believe being a public company will only further accelerate our ability to look around the corners and open up new categories and opportunities for those in the Endeavor network." And, it goes into some of the money that was made, that's been made. And it will be very interesting to see when this does go public officially, that you'll be able to deep dive into those numbers of what kind of money the UFC makes.
Yeah, when you're a publicly traded company, you're under quite a microscope. And you have to, the UFC is going to do as much as they can to protect their, proprietary information, but it's going to be interesting to see if Dana White stays in that role as well, because I'm sure a lot of his information is going to be public, which it would be very odd not having Dana. Dana's such a face of the UFC. It's going to be interesting to see where the UFC goes from here.
Yeah, and the UFC, this is not going anywhere, and this could be a big a boon for the sport, for the UFC. But yeah, that's the question to me too. That the $1 million question is, what does this mean for Dana White? Is he going to stick around? Because he has been the face of the UFC and still is. And even though some, he can be a polarizing figure at sometimes, but I've come to be used to Dana and getting the lowdown from him on what's going on. So I personally think he's that what?
Sorry, I was going to say it would feel very different without it.
It would, and
no doubt about it.
Here it also mentions there's going to be several types of for those guys out there that want to invest your money in the UFC and own a part of it. They are going to have 4 different common stocks, and the Class A here, that's the one that you guys can get. The voting share, that's the one that's going to be made available when this goes live, goes public, and a big thing. So the question is too from here is this doesn't say when it's going to happen, and that's a big point. And Deadline also points out here. The other unknown is the condition of the IPO market. Uber investors salivated for months at the chance for the transportation disruptor to go public, only to see its market debut last week prove a disappointment. Shares in the company are trading at around $40, about 10% below what the public offering price was. So, now the UFC is looking at what is the best time the most prime opportune time to take this public. So that's going to be the question going forward, and who knows? But this was the first step, and it will be interesting. So, guys in the chat room, if you want to put up when you think that is going to happen, put in the comments section. When do you think it's going to? Do you think it'll be by the? I think it'll be by year end. I think they're going to do it around one of the big year end shows. I would guess.
Yeah,
I would guess November.
You look at a $4 billion valuation. I'm sure there's a pretty hefty due diligence period involved. Between the SEC getting all your paperwork ready, and I would say that's
going to be a couple months. Yeah, yep. I think my guess, definitely not the summer. My guess, the month that Connor fights.
have your checkbook ready.
So
have your
own a piece of the pie. All right, guys. Well, that is it for us. Hey, smash that like button. Leave your comments. When do you think the UFC is going to take this public? And give your thoughts on how good of a is this for the fighters? This new deal with Aurora in testing out the benefits of CBD on the fighters. And anyway, we're going to get going. We're actually heading over to the UFC Performance Institute to interview some fighters, aren't we, Jake?
That's where we're headed.
Are you ready?
I am always ready.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to The Lowdown.